We'll look at this vernal pool through the eyes of a naturalist. Hello everyone, I'm Don Jacobs. I'm here in the beautiful Poconos, and I asked a friend of ours, Roger Spotts, to take us on a walk. Now we're gonna go wild with DiscoverNEPA here in the Poconos, taking a look at a vernal pool and how important they are in the Poconos.
I retired last year from the Monroe County Conservation District. I was their education coordinator for 40 plus years, working with schools and the public and exploring the Poconos with all kinds of different options. Of course, I retired, but I still love to get out and do things, and it gives me more time for fishing, which I enjoy, but it also gives me time to do some other things with some groups, and I've still been able to do some hikes and still go back and work with kids from time to time. But it gives me extra time to explore places like we're going today with this vernal pool.
What'd you find?
A red-backed salamander under a rock, which aren't many rocks out here to turn over, which is surprising.
Oh yeah.
He's pretty cold though. He's starting to move now.
Red back, obviously, because of the red line in the middle of the back.
Now these guys lay their eggs on land.
Okay.
They don't go to the vernal pools, so they'll deposit eggs under rocks and logs, and then they'll just hatch directly into a miniature version of the adult. They don't go through the larval stage.
So is that as big as it's going to get?
That's pretty average size.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to get much bigger than that. You have to be careful with them because their tails break off real easy, which is a defense mechanism. Because if something grabs it by the tail will break off, and the tail still wiggles.
Yep.
So the predator eats the tail and the salamander gets away.
It gets out of here.
But this guy's tail is nice and healthy, so he's starting to warm up now, so he's moving more. But
warming up because of your hands.
Because of the hands, yeah. It's probably the most common salamander in the forest you'll find under logs and rocks.
The red-backed salamander.
Red-backed salamander.
So do we need any special permit to go and play around in a vernal pool?
You can't collect and keep things. You can certainly go to a vernal pool and look at the amphibians and take a closer look at them, but there are rules and regulations that do protect collecting amphibians or frog eggs and things like that. So we're just going to look today and talk about what we find. Well, vernal pools are people that aren't familiar with them. You could be walking through the woods in the springtime and just see a big puddle of water and not realize how important it is. A vernal pool is typically a temporary wetland, which means when the snow melts or we have the big spring rains, water collects in a bowl-like area that is natural topography. And the water stays there sometimes for a few days, or in a vernal pool situation may stay there for a few months. And that's the important thing, because that allows amphibians, frogs and salamanders, who need water to lay eggs in, to deposit their eggs in that water. The eggs develop, hatch into larvae, the larvae turn into adults before the puddle dries up, usually by July in the summertime. The spotted salamanders live under logs and rocks all summer. You don't usually see them because they're underground, but on a warm spring night, usually in March, mid to late March, with rain especially, those spotted salamanders come out, and a mass migration to all the vernal pools happens because that's where they were born. They return to that vernal pool as adults, mate, lay eggs, reproduce. They go back to the forest, and then the eggs are left to develop in that vernal pool. Wood frogs, basically the same thing, except wood frogs you can see during the summer because they're up and about. Those are spotted salamander eggs. They haven't developed a whole lot yet. Keep them in the water a little bit. What they do is they lay the eggs in a big clump, and then the jello-like stuff protects them. But they have really, there you can see the dots.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Each one of those is an individual larva for a spotted salamander. And this mass may have 25, 30. You can see them through there. Mm-hmm. But the jelly protects them until they then hatch out. Now, when spotted salamanders hatch out, they actually have gills, almost like a fish. And the larvae will stay in here for 6 or 8 weeks. And that's different than a frog. Salamanders always lay them in big clumps like that, where a frog would have stringy eggs, which we'll see.
Wow. You could feel the jelly in it.
Yeah. And as they develop, like you come back in another 2 weeks, those black spots will be bigger.
Just put it back in here?
Yeah, just put it back. They should sink. Yep, there you go. And the other key thing about vernal pools, there's no fish in them because the puddle doesn't last all year. So that takes away the biggest predator of tadpoles and frog eggs and stuff. Perfect scenario. Nature's amazing in how all these things work together. And this vernal pool here is one that historically is usually very good for amphibians. It's in a perfect location and usually pretty productive. Look at them all.
Wow. So the wood frog lives in the woods, obviously, comes down here to this vernal pool and drops off these eggs and hope that it doesn't dry up before they're done.
Right, basically. And then the adult frogs, once the eggs are laid, they go back in the forest and don't come back to the water till next spring.
Wow.
And a wood frog is more brown colored than it is green because that camouflage benefits it in the forest.
Right.
Whereas a green frog, which is more aquatic based, is green, and that camouflage works better under the water.
So every one of the little white specks is going to be a frog?
Baby tadpole, yeah.
Baby, yeah.
And then it's pretty much a race for them to develop before the puddle dries up. But if you have your normal spring rainfall, normally that's not an issue. But if you'd have a real dry spring or a winter that didn't have much snow melt or anything, then it'd be a little tougher for the frogs to develop in that amount of time.
So see how quiet it is? On good rainy nights, the spring peepers, the wood frogs, everything comes alive. Roger, thank you for the hike. I enjoyed spending some time with you. And for this episode of Go Wild with Discover NEPA and every one of the other episodes, you can go to discovernepa.com or subscribe on YouTube.